It all started on a quiet Thursday afternoon at one of the busiest airports in the country. Business travelers rushed past each other, announcements echoed through the terminals, and the usual chaos of boarding calls filled the air. Among the crowd, a well-dressed black woman in her early 40s walked calmly toward her gate. She wasn't just any passenger. She was a CEO, sharp, respected, and the kind of person who could walk into a room and command attention without saying a word. Her name was Dana Matthews, and she was about to board a flight that would change everything. Dana had just wrapped up a series of meetings for a $600 million partnership with a major tech company. Everything had gone perfectly. Handshakes, signed. Papers, press plans already in motion. This trip home was supposed to be her moment to breathe. She had earned it. But what happened next would turn that moment of peace into a storm she never saw coming. As Dana waited at the gate, sipping her coffee and scrolling through emails, two uniformed airport security officers approached. They looked tense, eyes flicking from her to their radios, then back again. Without much warning, they asked her to stand up. Confused, Dana complied, thinking maybe it was a random check or a mistake. But before she knew it, they were escorting her away from the gate, in front of dozens of other passengers. Whispers followed. Phones came out. No explanation was given, just vague language about a passenger issue and needing to speak. To her away from the area, Dana tried to stay composed. Her voice was calm, professional, but firm. "May I ask what this is about?" she asked more than once. The response was clipped. "We'll explain soon, ma'am." But they never really did. Within minutes, she found herself removed from the plane she had legally boarded, a ticket she had paid for herself. No disturbance, no raised voice, no cause. Just a woman doing everything right, yet treated as though she didn't belong. Her heart was racing, not because of fear, but because of the humiliation that came with not being seen for who she was. It wasn't just about being removed from a plane. It was about everything behind that moment. Everything unspoken, but deeply, felt across the aisle just before it all unfolded. A 16-year-old black teen named Jordan had been quietly watching. He was flying alone for the first time, headphones in, hoodie up, notebook in his lap. He wasn't paying attention at first, but the tension in the air was impossible to miss. And then, as the situation escalated, something shifted. The officers looked at Dana, the way people stared and said nothing. It lit a fire in him he didn't fully understand yet. But Jordan had his own story brewing. Earlier, during the initial boarding process, he had noticed a pregnant white woman standing near the back of the plane, struggling with her bags. The flight was full, and it was clear she was uncomfortable. Without a second thought, he stood up and offered her his seat. It was a small gesture, quiet, kind, no big speeches. But the look of relief and gratitude on her face was unforgettable. She sat down with a thank you and tears in her eyes, not knowing how to express what it really meant. A few hours later, when the plane landed and passengers began collecting their things, the woman handed Jordan a folded note. She didn't say much, just smiled and told him to read it when he had a chance. What was written inside would turn his world upside down. 2 moments, 2 lives, and 2 very different reactions to the same flight. One story filled with injustice and insult, the other with unexpected kindness and life-changing impact, but both connected in a way no one could have predicted. Dana's experience didn't end with humiliation. Hours later, when she was finally able to make it home and think clearly, she made a decision, one that would send shockwaves through the very company that allowed it to happen. And as for Jordan, that note in his pocket, well, it wasn't just a thank you. It was an opportunity that would open doors he never dreamed of. But he had no idea just how far it would go. This isn't just a story about race. It's about how we treat each other when no one's watching, about moments that seem small but echo far beyond the airport or a cramped airplane row. One act of prejudice, one act of kindness, and the ripples that followed. So what did that note say? And what happened to the $600 million deal after Dana made one phone call that night? The answers are coming. But first, let's go back. Back to the terminal, back to the flight, back to the moment everything began to change. Back in her home office, Dana Matthews sat in silence. The lights were low, the house quiet, but her mind was racing. Her phone buzzed nonstop, calls from her assistant, messages from the legal team, a few concerned texts from colleagues who had caught wind of what had happened at the airport. But she wasn't ready to respond. Not yet. She stared out the window, into the night, still replaying the moment she was escorted off that plane, still hearing the murmurs, still seeing the uncomfortable glances from passengers who didn't know what to say, or chose not to say anything at all. This wasn't Dana's first time traveling for business. She was used to red-eye flights, tight connections and long security lines. But this was different. The silence from the airline, the vague explanations, the way they refused to meet her eye once they had her off the plane. It wasn't about policy. It was about perception. And Dana knew that. As a black woman in a powerful position, she had always carried herself with grace, but also with armor. She had to. And yet, moments like this reminded her that sometimes, no matter how many titles you hold, or how many deals you close, you're still reduced to a stereotype in the blink of an eye. Across the city, Jordan was also home now. He sat on the edge of his bed, the note from the pregnant woman still folded in his hand. He hadn't opened it yet. Something about it felt too big to just read casually. He glanced over at the small stack of college brochures on his desk. Most of them were from schools he knew he couldn't afford. His mom had told him not to give up, that something would work out. But deep down, Jordan had started to think maybe college just wasn't in the cards, not without a miracle. He thought back to that moment on the plane. The woman had looked exhausted, like she'd been carrying more than just the baby. He didn't do it for attention or praise. It just felt like the right thing to do. But now, staring at that note, he wondered why she'd been so emotional. Why her hands trembled a little when she gave it to him. He unfolded it slowly, heart beating faster with every crease. But before he could read the first word, his phone buzzed. It was his mom calling from the living room. "Dinner's ready," she called out. He folded the note back up and slipped it into his hoodie pocket. Not yet, he'd read it later. Back in Dana's office, her assistant called again. This time, she answered. "You okay?" The voice on the other end asked softly. Dana exhaled. "Not really, but I'm thinking. Do you want me to issue a statement?" "No," Dana said. "Not yet. I want to handle this differently." There was a pause. "You're still going forward with the deal?" Dana looked at the framed photo on her desk. Her first day as CEO. Her team had surprised her with it, all smiles and champagne. She remembered how proud she felt. Not just for herself, but for everyone who had worked so hard to get her there. "I haven't decided," she said finally. "But if I do move forward, it won't be with them." Meanwhile, word had started to spread online. A few passengers had posted vague tweets. "Just watched a black woman escorted off a flight for no reason. She was calm, respectful, made no sense." Others chimed in. A blurry photo showed Dana being led away, her expression unreadable but strong. Some people started asking questions. The airline posted a generic message about investigating the incident. No names, no details, just a vague apology to anyone impacted. But people weren't buying it. Comments poured in, many supportive, some skeptical, others angry. A few recognized Dana and connected the dots. "Isn't she the CEO of that green energy company?" Someone asked in a thread. "Didn't she just announce a massive partnership with Horizon Tech?" Another user replied, "If that's true, wow, somebody just made a big mistake at EU." Horizon Tech headquarters, things were already getting uncomfortable. One of the executives who had worked closely with Dana had caught wind of the incident through a journalist's tip. He called internal PR. "Please tell me this isn't the woman we were about to sign with," he said. It might be," someone stammered on the other end. "We're checking." "You better check fast." They didn't know it yet, but Dana had already made her decision. She wasn't going to post a tweet or do a live video. Not yet. She didn't need to make noise to be heard. She knew her silence would speak loud enough for now. But the truth was, this wasn't just about the flight. It wasn't just about being removed from a plane. It was about how quickly assumptions were made, about how quiet racism can hide behind policy, and how people with power sometimes forget who they're dealing with until it's too late. Dana had been fighting battles like this her whole life, but this time, she had the leverage, and she knew it. At school the next day, Jordan couldn't focus. All he could think about was that note in his pocket. Finally, during lunch, he slipped away to the library and sat down in the back corner, away from the noise. He took a breath, pulled out the note, and opened it. The handwriting was neat, a little rushed, but clear. Dear Jordan, you don't know me, but today you changed my life. You didn't ask questions, you didn't hesitate, you just helped. I was on my way to meet with someone who might be able to help me leave a very difficult situation. I was terrified I wouldn't make it in time. Because of you, I did. That seat you gave me wasn't just a seat, it was a second chance. I work with a foundation that helps students like you get full scholarships to college. If you're interested, please reach out. You may have just changed my life, and I would be, honored to help change yours. Thank you again, Aaron Walters. Jordan read it twice, then a third time. He looked around like someone was watching him, like maybe this wasn't real. But it was. Aaron Walters. That name sounded familiar. He pulled out his phone and did. Quick search. Within seconds, her face popped up. Founder of the Bridge Forward Foundation, a nonprofit known for helping underserved youth get access to higher education, mentorship, internships, everything he thought was out of reach. He sat there stunned. A simple act of kindness on a crowded flight had opened a door he never even knew existed. But just as Jordan was beginning to realize how much his life might be about to change, Dana was preparing for a conversation that would change hers too. One email, one call, one sentence. We will not be moving forward with the deal at this time. She hadn't sent it yet, but her finger hovered over the send button, because when you've been underestimated your whole life, sometimes the best response isn't a fight. It's a choice, and she was about to make hers.